if you're going to put $1 of your tax money in, what can you expect out in terms of what type of development that we want to support going forward? And with us tonight is Joe Minicozzi, who really gets into the math. Sometimes development and the way taxes are expended can be seen as a little politicized, and I always like to say, this is not a red issue, this is not a blue issue, this is a green issue. This is about how your money is used to make your city a more development-friendly and more financially responsible place. Joe's going to talk a little bit about what the development models are that are out there and how choosing a certain path can actually yield better performance for the city and really a more efficient use of your tax dollars. With that, I would like to turn it over to him. He's going to talk for about maybe 45 minutes, and then we'll open it up for some Q&A. So with that, Joe Minicozzi, everybody.
So how many of y'all have been to Asheville before? Show of hands. That's cool, about 50% of the audience. So I'm going to start the talk a little bit about what Asheville's experience was and how that was going. And then from there, I'm going to talk about what we've seen around the country. And there's going to be slides, trust me. I can't operate without slides. There's a lot of visuals. But in your experience of Asheville, did y'all go to the downtown? Did you see the downtown? What did you think of it? Good, bad, productive? Restaurants were good. So we have 70 restaurants in our downtown. We have 20 breweries. It was great to get the beer tour, part of the beer tour here. We're kind of a little bit of beer snobs in Asheville. We have about 5.5 thousand people per brewery in Asheville. We have the highest beer per capita of the entire United States. It didn't start that way. We started with one brewery in the late 80s called Highland. Started in downtown, and it slowly blossomed as a beer culture. New Belgium Brewery, Sierra Nevada, and Oscar Blues, the maker of Dale's Pale Ale, are all moving to Asheville as their East Coast center. Now, what's interesting about Asheville is that experience ran counter to a lot of what was going on in the community. And how are we doing on the slide up there? Are we close? We're getting there. So I'm going to flash through our firm. The parent company of our firm is a real estate development company called Public Interest Projects. It was started by a gentleman, his name is Julian Price. And for those of you that want any information of this presentation, it's being videotaped. And we also have, I'll give you a copy of all the slides too. We have a PDF in the back that you'll all get. But Public Interest Projects was started by Julian. Julian inherited money, and basically he came from Greensboro, and his family was like, please come back to Asheville, or come back to Greensboro. He stopped in Asheville as close as he got. He took his money and folded it into a real estate development company. Our firm was started with essentially a $12 million investment. With that, we invested in sticks and bricks. We fixed buildings. 75% of our money goes into fixing buildings. We reserve 25% in seeding businesses. So what we all sought was looking for entrepreneurs inside the community that had great ideas that would fit an urban environment. So the first vegetarian restaurant in all of Asheville, the Laughing Seed, if any of you all ate at the Laughing Seed, that's one of our restaurants. They were told by the banks that it would never work. They went to the banks, they were vegetarian chefs. Julian was a vegetarian, he kind of encouraged them to go there, and the banks looked at the menu and said, there's no pork on the menu. This is a pork state. This is North Carolina, where's your pork? And they're like, look, we're vegetarians. And they're like, that'll never work. That restaurant's been in business since 1993. It's one of the anchors of our downtown. It's called the Laughing Seed. We are now one of the top 10 vegetarian vegetarian cities in the entire United States. It was basically by noticing what was already there, noticing the opportunities that already existed in our community. Our firm, Urban 3, focuses on telling the story of that economic value to the community. So what we found ourselves constantly doing is talking with our community about what the value of our investments in our downtown were doing. Now, certainly they're succeeding. It's essentially a revolving fund. Those businesses have to succeed and stay in business in the downtown. Conversely, when we have a cultivated wealth in our downtown, that produces wealth for our entire community. So a lot of what I learned about cities, I'm going to put a couple lessons up front. I grew up in a small town in upstate New York called Rome, New York, and during college I went to another Rome, Italy. My hometown of Rome, New York, I don't know if y'all know where Rome is, but it's essentially dying on the vine, Rust Belt town in upstate New York. And one of the things I learned from the other Rome is that cities are all places in time, much in the way that we're all places in time, right? So if you want to see how I started life, this is me. And this is what I'm going to become, right? So I'll be Papa, whether I like it or not. There's no way around it. More importantly, I'm going to be this guy. This is my dad and my mom, and I have 2 genetic issues in my family. I'm genetically Italian. You can see that from my name and how I behave, right? But we also have a genetic predisposition to heart disease, which is just the reality of being me. Every Minicozzi male has had a heart issue sometime during their life. My dad has had a 7 bypass heart surgery. So I know that I have to watch the bacon, I have to exercise, I have to do these things in order to not have those same genetic flaws, right? As you look in your community, as you look around Huntsville, who is your grandparent? What kind of issues do you have in your genetic material that you're looking at other communities to avoid? Did y'all get that? There's one takeaway as you go through this planning process. I want you to have in your mind's eye what city you're trying to become. What do you want to be when you grow up? What path are you on? Or more importantly, look at your genetic material that you have today and see where it could become. Are you going to be Atlanta? Do you want to be Atlanta? Yes or no? You know, what are you doing with your community? So that's lesson number 1. Lesson number 2 is a quick little test. I'm going to give you all, this is a pretty sophisticated crowd, so I'll give you all 6 seconds to tell me how many shapes you see in this next image. For those of you who have seen me do this before, don't yell out the answers, but for those who haven't seen this, it's a kid's puzzle. It's really easy. I'm not going to fail you if you miss this, but just tell me how many shapes you see in this next image. Ready? Go. And all of them doesn't count as an answer. So could y'all tell me how many shapes? 9. We got 20 is a high. Anybody want to go higher than 20? 30. 37. Anybody want to go higher or lower than 8? 7. Okay. So we've got 7 and 37 are the 2 numbers. How many kids were on the school bus? Did y'all see that? What time was it on the clock? So there's a Nobel Prize winning economist. His name is Daniel Kahneman. Wrote a book called Thinking Fast and Slow. We have 2 modes of thinking in our brains. We've got a fast mode. We can scan the horizon to see if there's tigers jumping out of the bush. We'll look just straight for tigers, right? When we're dealing with community decisions, oftentimes we'll go into that fast mode and not use our slow mode processing. We won't look for all of the information, right? You didn't see there were 5 kids on the bus or that it was 10 after 10 on the clock because I steered the way that you thought. As you talk about your community, try to get past thinking about the obvious, thinking about the questions that's put before you, but try to take all that information in. Does it all make sense? What we're going to go through in this exercise is just asking a series of different questions about the reality that we all walk through. So those are my 2 lessons up front. So I want to beg the question, what's a city? This is Asheville here. And here's where we're located. And just for those of you that haven't been to Asheville, we are clearly in the barbecue zone on the pig side of the border. But we're definitely not in the yellow sauce area. So just go ahead and put that out there. Kind of a little bit in the vinegar tomato base area. This is how we started in the 1800s. This is a shot down Main Street. 30 years after this picture was taken, this is what we became. We like to say the 3 T's made Asheville: trains, tourism, and tuberculosis, that once the trains came down there, it brought in a flood of tourists. Presidents came to visit. We still have presidents visit. We have the 2nd streetcar line in the entire country at this point in time. 2nd. We were only 2nd behind Richmond, Virginia. During that period, we grew 20% in population every single year through the decade. We became the 2nd largest city in North Carolina. Let that wash over you for a second. The only city that was bigger than us was Winston-Salem. We were bigger than Charlotte, than Raleigh, than Durham. During that achievement, we achieved the highest debt per capita in the entire United States. We were number 1 in debt. Number 1, Asheville, North Carolina. When the Depression hit and our books were audited, we thought we had $5 million in the bank. It turned out we had $18,000 in the bank. A little clerical error there. Our city council was indicted, and the mayor committed suicide 3 days after the indictment came down. That's how we entered the Depression. That's what we did to ourselves in the 1920s. Thomas Wolfe, the famous American author who wrote the book Look Homeward, Angel, this is what he had to say about his hometown. Asheville has squandered fabulous sums. They've flung away the earnings of a lifetime. They've mortgaged those of a generation to come. They have ruined a city, and in doing so, they've ruined themselves, their children, and their children's children. Could you imagine saying that about your hometown? Incidentally, he was a professor at NYU in English literature, and they literally told his parents, don't ever let your son come home again. So his second book was called You Can't Go Home Again, for obvious reasons. But in a way, it's not that he was clairvoyant. In a way, he was right. We have damaged ourselves in the way that we were behaving in our community. It took us until 1976 to pay off that debt. We chose to pay off that debt. We didn't take part of the New Deal program in the 1930s, so we chose to pay off that debt. It took us until 1976. So in a way, for those of you that have visited Asheville, we were essentially too poor to tear anything down. So in the 70s, when we got out of our debt, we started trying to catch up to everybody else. We started taking advantage of urban renewal programs. We started doing highways. We cut a highway through the north side of downtown, which became the Crosstown Expressway. And the coup de grace was when we blew a hole through the mountain. And I love that it's on a postcard, which was a bowcatcher cut. On the other side of the cut, the mall happened, and our downtown died. This is the experience that every American city was going through at that time and period. We just gave up on this place. We just walked away from our downtown. These are shots of downtown from not too long ago. That's a 1996 Chevy Celebrity. Look at this wonderful fixer-upper. Y'all want to put some elbow grease into this thing? It's a great opportunity for somebody. So we had all of these boarded up buildings. We just kind of forgot about them and let them go fallow. We wanted to get past that experience. Our children's children did not want to be part of the downtown anymore. And this is what we walked away from. I mean, you could blow a cannon off the street and not hit a pedestrian. So anytime somebody tried to fix downtown, like a Greek choir, these people would rise up and say, that'll never work here, don't even try. Not ever again in Asheville. We're not urban people, right? Y'all have these kind of people in your community? Yeah, every community I go to, there's always the naysayers. We've got them in spades full in Asheville. So Julian, this is Julian up in the upper left. These are some of our buildings and some of our businesses in black. We own a nightclub. This is the Orange Peel, one of the top 5 nightclubs in the entire country. Taj Mahal punched me in the back in the basement. That was kind of cool. But it's a neat thing. It's an amenity for our community to have that live entertainment. That's what you expect in the downtown. This is one of our buildings before and after. We moved a bookseller into it, and I can't really see all y'all's hands, but how many in the room? These are 400 to 600 square foot apartments, right? These are kind of small. How many people in this room would live in a 400 to 600 square foot apartment? Like 4 people? Let me change the question. How many people in this room have lived in a 400 to 600 square foot apartment? So Pat is Julian's trustee. We have a lot of rules and lessons in our firm, but today we're going to focus on the numbers. We're going to focus on how do we explain the numbers. I love this picture of Ronald Reagan. And this is great. Here we are talking about taxes, and we've got our bill and we've got their bill. I mean, isn't this awesome? He doesn't even put a number on here. Let's just get right to the point. That's what we're talking about. Now, you don't care if this is a 5 cent or a $5 million difference, right? You're just like, well, I want that one versus that. There's some beauty here in explaining policy and articulating it to your community, to your citizens. How do you understand what's going on? We tend to think of it like product, like a farmer thinks of a farm. A farmer doesn't go out and just farm the entire acreage. The farmer's thinking about things economically. What does it cost in water and fertilizer and labor per acre? What's the crop yield per acre, and what does it yield in the marketplace? And if it doesn't make sense economically, they're not out there tilling the soil, right? So if you look at buildings the same way, we were looking at our downtown. This is what downtown was worth when we started going. And we weren't the only people working on downtown. There were numerous people. But the city invested in trying to get the downtown up and operational. And what's kind of interesting is in the 90s, this is what happened. These are actually literally flyers by our area politicians, folks running for office, and these are their campaign ads from the 1990s. And I love this guy right here, this taxpayer just sweating, and he's dragging this big ball of past council decisions on all this wasteful spending of a parking garage in a Wall Street streetscape project. $26 million of wasteful taxpayer dollars on that downtown, people, right? Why would you waste your money on your downtown? I like this right here. For those of you that have been downtown, you'll find the joke in this. Downtown parking fiasco, millions of dollars wasted on unused parking decks. Did y'all park in our parking decks? They're packed. So this is that'll never work here, don't even try. So let's do the math on this. The city invested $26 million here. The private sector responded by filling up those upper stories to here. We didn't get a new building until about 2008. So I'll ask you a simple math problem. If you invest $26 million and you yield a $400 million return, is putting in $26 million to get $400 million, is that a good return on investment? I think so. All of those individuals that worked on that $26 million were fired because those people won office and came in and went on a witch hunt. That's the culture of what we were dealing with when we were revitalizing our community. So, this is one of our buildings. This is the streetscape project. I mean, I've literally had people tell me, they're like, look, Joe, we did a retail, office, and residential. This is a subsidy on your property. Y'all got this garbage can, this bike rack, 2 benches, and a street tree, and a wider sidewalk because of our tax dollars. That's a subsidy to you, the developer. So let's go ahead, I'll own that. Thank you for the public investment. Even though the whole entire world can walk on that sidewalk, it's ours. Thank you. We took this building from $300,000 of tax value to $11 million of tax value. That represents a 3,500% increase in property value on that parcel. Did y'all get that? So the way that we see that is our community can now afford 3,500% more stuff off one asset. That asset that was already sitting there in the portfolio, but through our efforts and investment, we turned that into new community wealth. Our community can now afford 3,500% more money to do whatever they want with it, more greenways, more art teachers, whatever they want. Do y'all have a 401k plan that grows by 3,500%? Any personal investments that do that? So think of that. We're all in this city together. We're in this corporation together cultivating wealth. Now people say to me, Joe, that's fine. That's $11 million. We got this Walmart over here at $20 million, right? Paying $220,000 in property taxes, a tremendous sum. This is my house over here. This is my wife, Caroline. These are my 2 dogs. My dogs think they're lions. They're very strange dogs. Caroline and I we're on a 1/10 of an acre. We pay $2,300 in taxes. Or if you had a 1-acre cookie cutter that fell into my neighborhood and hit 10 houses on an acre, right? At a 1/10 of an acre. That's $20,000 an acre in taxes. Do y'all follow me on that? If you take that same 1-acre cookie cutter, float it up into space, drop it on the Walmart at its $220,000 in property taxes, this is what you get. Per acre, it's $6,500 an acre in taxes. Now, if you had an acre of our building downtown, this is what you get. So if y'all are running a city, what kind of revenue yield do you want to have? Which one produces the most wealth? I was trying to drive this point home to people in Denver. And I was like, look, if y'all only had an acre of land to grow something in Denver, what would you grow? So they got the point. This joke works in Asheville too, by the way. You're probably saying, Joe, that's fine, that's property taxes, we got retail taxes. Well, Caroline and I don't sell anything, so let's go ahead and remove Caroline and I. And the misnomer with retail sales is you kind of think this is what you're getting, but those are just existing transactions in the marketplace. But let's go ahead and look at that. Our city gets a portion of that, right? So 8 cents on the sales dollar, we're getting 27% of that 8 cents because that sales tax dollar travels up to Raleigh. Raleigh takes a piece, the county takes a piece, and we get what's left. Running the numbers on that, that's $47,000. You add to the property taxes. So the total tax productivity per acre, the total nut you're getting out of this thing is $51,000 an acre. That's just the property taxes the city gets out of ours. You add the retail taxes, you're cooking with gas, jobs per acre. I mean, how y'all want to look at it? And so when you put the numbers side by side, the math does the work for you. Which one gives you a better yield? You just have to make it apples to apples. Y'all follow this? Usually at this slide, I usually recommend a book called Moneyball to people. One of my friends saw this, and he's like, Joe, you're doing Moneyball for cities. If you haven't read the book Moneyball, just recommend just go out and watch the movie, start there, but please read the book. It's basically talking about the economics behind baseball by looking at a different statistical pattern. So just looking at different numbers that existed in baseball, the Oakland Athletics are able to be in the playoffs every year with one of the lowest paid teams because they're making better mathematical decisions. It's all just math. That's the city side. Let's bring the county into this. So this is my county, Buncombe County. The property taxes paid per acre to my county is about $1,700 by every city resident. So I, as a city resident, am paying more county taxes to the county than somebody out in the county is paying. This is a county resident. Do y'all follow that? We like to pick on the Biltmore estate too, by the way. This is an incredible deal because, you know, they need the break. So let's get past us. Let's bring commercial into it. Now you see this is the city resident. This is the mall at $8,000 an acre. You'd see why an elected official would maybe go toward doing the commercial development. It brings a higher yield, right? So let's not stop there. Let's bring downtown into it. Here's the mall at $8,000. There's our building at $250,000 an acre in taxes to my county per acre. Do y'all follow that? Look at the potency of just the 4-story building right here. They're $45,000 an acre. So what's interesting about this diagram is what's good for the downtown is great for the city, but it's incredible for the county. Does Madison County swoop into downtown and do some streetscape projects or help with the bikeway in the middle of downtown? You know, so these are things, conversations to have in your community about having parity of investment in your community. So realize, I'm an architect. This isn't complex math that I'm doing here. It's just normalizing things in a least common denominator way, which is just your land. So we've done this all across the country, mashing up everybody. We see a trend. For every dollar of county taxes somebody out in the county is paying, a city resident's paying about $5 to the county per acre for every dollar they pay, right? You add the Walmart in, the Walmart's at about $6.70. The mall's a little bit more than the Walmart, maybe like 1.5 times the Walmart. But as soon as you get to a 2-story building, this can be in the smallest of main streets, the smallest of towns, Driggs, Idaho, 2,000 people. This is what you see. And what's crazy is it doesn't jump proportionally, it jumps exponentially. As you cultivate your downtown, you're cultivating your community's wealth. I'm not saying everybody has to live in downtown, but there is a portion of your market share that will do that and pay handsomely to your community. So let's kind of recap. What I've done here, just kind of talking with you about this, is I'm trying to talk about normalizing things over dirt, over all of that you control, which is a finite acre of dirt. Think about cars. When we talk about cars, we don't compare these cars on a miles per tank basis, do we? I mean, who does that at the cocktail party? Hey, what's your miles per tank? You see how silly that is. We'd all be driving Ford F-150s at 650 miles per tank. But we know that gasoline's a finite commodity. We also know that all gas tanks are different sizes. So it'd be ridiculous to do it on a miles per tank basis. We say miles per gallon, and look at that, the numbers change. This is the crazy math that I'm doing, right? And so we all should be driving BMW Asettas at 70 miles per gallon. Sorry to your Prius owners if you're in the audience, but 1955 technology beats 2011 technology. It's basically a motorcycle. It's a little dangerous, too. If you have a front-end collision, you get locked in with that door there. But anyway, the question that I'm bringing out here in looking at cities is also thinking through what they really are. This is from Webster's Dictionary, this bottom line right here. Incorporation is the forming of a new corporation. The corporation may be a business, a nonprofit, a sports club, or a government of a new city or town. In essence, if you live in Huntsville, you are a shareholder in the corporation of Huntsville. You're also a shareholder in the corporation of Madison. But the citizen is a shareholder in 2 corporations, right? You've bought into that. These things have to function financially. So a city is essentially a finite boundary of land that has to be managed. We have a $12 million portfolio. We're watching all the costs and revenues that go through that. So you should be doing that at the same scale at the city. So thinking about things, we look at our businesses as balance sheets. You've got liabilities and you've got assets, you've got expenses and you've got incomes, right? So if we were to do the same thing for a city, we did Sarasota, Florida. The state had actually done this document pricing out infrastructure. And as you have from compact downtown, the infrastructure per unit, per dwelling unit, and then as you spread people out, and these are real places, Wellington's in Palm Beach County, this is downtown Orlando. And as you spread people out, the cost of service goes up. It's real simple. If you have a mile of pipe with 5,000 people on it, it's cheaper than a mile of pipe with 5 people on it. So we grabbed a couple of the costs. We went into the edge of the community, grabbed some suburban multifamily, literally at the edge of the county, right here. And then we went into the downtown and said, look, what if we just grab 357 units, because that's how many units are here, and go into the downtown and pluck out 357 units and let them sit apples to apples, right? So this is the land cost, downtown versus burbs. The land consumed one-tenth the portfolio, one-tenth of your land is consumed to house the same number of people, right? This is the expense, 5.7 million versus 10, so 57% the cost to the public. We ran their taxes. These are the taxes. 870% more revenue. So if this is my mortgage, and this is your mortgage, and this is my annual payment, and this is yours, how long will it take the two of us to pay off our mortgages at this rate, if they were indeed separate? It's going to take me 42 years. It's going to take you 3. Right? Y'all follow me on that? So what ends up happening, the way that we develop our land actually ties up our capital in time. Roads last about 25 to 30 years before you have to resurface them. These folks haven't even paid off their infrastructure before the resurfacing is coming due. Now, in real estate development world, when I have cost, income, and time, I can come up with an ROI, right? My return on investment. Here's my investment, here's my return, here's my rate. So it's an 18% return rate for the urban environment, a 2% return rate in the burbs. Do y'all know what inflation is? Like, this stuff's not even keeping up with inflation. I was presenting this in Idaho with, like, seriously, there were cowboys in the audience with cowboy vests and all that. And they're like, Joe, these are way too many charts. You're, like, nerding out too much on us. Could you slow it down? Just show it to us in year 20. So this is what it looks like in year 20. You would have produced $34 million of wealth for your community over your expenses. You're still in the hole $5 million. This is after 20 years. So when we look at the physical environment, we see these choices people are making. This is a really good deal if you don't want to pay for your costs. You're essentially getting out of jail free by your community. And that's all right so long as you account for it and you start to budget that upside down investment. Does that all make sense? You guys are really quiet. You okay? So these are just the humble rules the simple rule, the relentless rules of humble arithmetic. This is a quote from Chief Justice Brandeis. When you do the math, when you produce data and evidence, you help the community make better decisions. This is my technical chart for those engineers in the audience. So more data and evidence, better decisions, hopefully. So we have ways of doing this. We have equipment that we can make decisions with, right? We can use X-ray technology to show you hard tissue inside your bodies, right? I can change the machine and show you soft tissue. I can even show you your brain in 3D. Well, why aren't we thinking of our cities with this technology? Why aren't we using this technology to envision information? So we were doing work in Nashville, and this is their value per acre map. This is like an MRI of tax productivity. You have exempt land in gray, so you see all the parks around the lake here. Low value per acre, low productivity at less than $250,000 an acre. And the higher you go up the heat index, the higher your value productivity goes. This is the entire Davidson County. Can you all tell me where downtown is? Yeah. So let's kind of zoom in a little bit to just the city limits. Now can you tell me where downtown is? You can even see on the edge of Vandy right here what's going on around Vanderbilt University with all the medical complexes. So this is where your revenue's coming from. This is your heat energy. Well, you know, some people can't read maps, so we make it easier for them. Now can you tell me where downtown is? And so we're just asking them, like, why don't you put more purple stuff in here, right? Or better yet, why isn't more of this orange stuff happening over here? Again, this allows the community to make a different approach to community planning. What's providing wealth for the community? That's one nerdy way of doing it for the geographer nerds in the community, in the audience here. We like to do these things called cartograms. A cartogram is a horizontal distortion of the same information, so rather than going vertical, let's go horizontal. This is a map from 1921 of energy sales in the United States, and you see that New York is the #1 energy seller, so it's the biggest one. Alabama is number 21, so it's 1/21 the size of New York, right? So we went ahead and we really like to nerd out on this stuff. So this is the county, and this is the county's cartogram. So let's put them side by side. Oops. So you can see the potency of that little area, what it feels like financially, or to the city doing the same thing, and then putting them side by side. So that land area, economically inside the portfolio of the community, is like a 1:15 ratio. So if y'all had a business and you had a sales, like an employee, and your saleswoman was selling, only took up one share, but she took up 15% of the productivity of your office, how would you feel about her performance? Would you give her a raise, a bonus? Or would you walk up to her once a year and like slap her upside the head and say, you're not working hard enough? You know, for those of you that work in the downtown, you'll get that joke. You know, downtowns are constantly asked for doing more in their community, but they're not given the resources to do it. But this is a good graphic definition of doing that. Now, y'all are more of a retail tax base. This is Montgomery County. I didn't pull your county. But this is the proportion of sales tax to property tax in Montgomery County. We pulled the retail tax in Nashville. This is the entire county broken up by zip code, by area, and then this is the retail tax productivity. So you have this sliver right here of downtown. That's how much land area. Let's kind of zoom in here. Let's do this. So this is the footprint of downtown, and then this is the rest of the county. This is the total county retail tax productivity. That's the impact downtown has. So that tiny little sliver of land, I mean, that's like not even a 1:20, it's like a 1:100 ratio of potency. Did y'all get that? This is another way of looking at it. Here's the bar chart. So here's downtown's average retail tax productivity. For those of you that are familiar with Nashville, this is Green Hills Mall right here. The mall that's next to Belle Meade, one of the most wealthy communities in Tennessee, that's as much as they get, which is still good. It's much better than all the other malls. Al Gore lives in the community next door. This is a 100% retail environment. This environment here has city buildings, county buildings, state buildings, churches, all this stuff that doesn't sell anything, doesn't produce retail tax. But even with its hand tied behind its back, it's doing this, right? Is this too late to be showing charts? Are you guys getting this? I mean, seriously, like the crowd this morning was kind of quiet, but you guys are real quiet. So, what's that? Oh, you guys dig PowerPoints, or is this too nerdy for you? You get it? Okay, cool. You're my people. So here's the property taxes done over the zip code area. So here's downtown. Here's the Green Hills Mall. You add the retail taxes. This is what you get. You do the total taxes. That's what you get. So there it is. That's the evidence and data combined for the community. The crazy thing is when you look at this stuff and you dig a little deeper, this is the wannabes karaoke bar, right? You want to be a star, that's where you go. This is $9.6 million of value. Nothing compared to the whopping $100 million, right? But that took 52 acres to get there. This is on 0.05 acres. So in an apples-to-apples way, if you had 0.5 acres of this building, just half an acre of that building, which is probably the size of some of y'all's houses, half an acre of that would equal the entire 52-acre that. Is this really a deal killer? I mean, it's only 3 stories tall. This isn't anything unachievable. And the crazy thing is this has been in the portfolio of the community for over 100 years, producing that level of revenue. Is this thing going to be here 100 years from now? I don't know. So in Chattanooga, we were doing another study there, and you see this is the river. Here's their Brooklyn across the river. Here's their downtown. This is the university. 2.4 acres of this in their Brooklyn. 2.4 acres of that equals the entire 67-acre Hamilton Place Mall. One of the interesting things about Chattanooga, so the mall, this is the mall, and then all of the like Power Center and Best Buy and Bed Bath & Beyond and all the other junk that comes with it, produces an average value of $670 million or $670,000 per acre, and then the downtown's averaging about $4.6 million an acre. So pound for pound, they're getting a heck of a lot more out of that. This is 152 acres. That's 163 acres, and it's still only achieving 109 million. This is pulling 700 million of value. Now, when I was presenting in Chattanooga, it was kind of fun. I was showing this slide, and somebody in the audience yelled at me. I'm like, this is right at the middle of downtown, the main intersection. we've got a Chili's, an Applebee's, and a Buffalo Wild Wings. Yeehaw, right? So I'm presenting this, and somebody yells out from the audience, this guy called me an elitist. He's like, "You're an elitist." And I was like, "Why? Over what?" He's like, "I like Applebee's. You're making fun of Applebee's. Don't make fun of Applebee's." Like, all right, I'm not making fun of Applebee's. Applebee's is actually killing it at $3 million compared to these two schleps. But, I mean, that's a hell of a lot better than that, which is $670,000. This is at least pulling close to $3 million. But if you go 2 blocks away from this site, you'll find this. 10 years old, and they're pulling $11 million an acre. Why on God's green earth would you not just put townhouses here? For God's sakes, you'd make more revenue. And I said, better yet, hey, here's something creative. Put the townhouses on top of this stuff. Make even more revenue for your community. It's clear as day that people want to live in downtown. Just build more of that. And it was kind of funny. This was kind of new to them to think that way. There are things that are going on inside the system that are changing the way that we behave as developers. I'm doing things in your community as a developer based on your policies. So this is one of my favorite examples. This is, you've got 2 values in your real estate. You've got your value of your building that sits on top of dirt, right? So you've got your building value and your dirt value. We can go into the computer and just turn off all the buildings. We don't want to see any of the improvements. We're just going to look at the dirt value per acre, right? Dirt value per acre, just the land. You'd expect the world to look like this, right? Everybody in the neighborhood's got the same color, it's the same value per acre, right? As I was presenting this in Cheyenne, Wyoming, I was like, hey, what's going on here? This is $15,000 an acre. As soon as you cross the street, it goes up to $35,000 an acre. Like, what's up with that? You cross the street, it doubles the value. We looked at the zoning code. There's no zoning change. It's all commercial highway business all along that corridor. The tax assessor was sitting in the front row, and she just like raises her hand. And she said to me, she goes, "You don't understand." And I said, "What don't I understand?" And she goes, "Well, the more land you have, the lower the value." Let that wash over you for a second. Did you hear what I just said? The more land you have, the lower the value. The mayor just about spat coffee out of his nose, and there was an audible chuckle through the room, but she was totally serious. And I was like, well, okay, so if I've got the biggest parcel on this street, I've got 3/4 of a mile of frontage here, 3/4 of a mile of frontage here, another half mile and half mile. I got 3 miles of infrastructure. I've got the biggest site on the street. The biggest site means I can fit the most stuff on it. I have the potential for the most stuff. I've got the zoning capacity for the most stuff. More stuff, more transactions. I have more retail transactions. I've got more theft, more fire, police calls. If I've got more people visiting the site, chances are I'm going to have more car accidents, more fire calls. You're going to give me more stuff for a discount price? And she's like, yeah, that's our standard. So I asked her, I said, where'd you get this standard from? Did Moses deliver it to you? You know, and it's kind of funny. I actually presented this. This will show you what kind of a nerd I am. I presented this at the International Association of Tax Assessing Officers. And I asked them the same thing. They actually laughed at this. They're like, oh, that's funny. And I was like, no, seriously, I want to know. Where'd this come from? They're like, we don't know. But maybe you should talk to Larry. I'm not making this up. I'm like, Larry who? Like, Larry Clark. He probably knows the answer. And so I go and meet with Larry, and I'm like, does this make any economic sense to you at all? And he's like, no, we should probably change that. These aren't invisible market forces that are making me behave a certain way. If I get a discount for land where I don't pay for the infrastructure, where do you think I'm going to build? The edge of your community. That's where I find the big parcels, and that's where you all pay for a road to come out to me, and I don't get charged for it. It's a great deal. So our policies have an ability to hurt ourselves. And it's all right. You know, we're not perfect beings. We're going to try policies. The best thing is when you figure out you're hurting yourself with it, put the gun down. Try a different policy. And also, I like this quote from Michael Bloomberg, measuring things is really important. If you want to go through a planning process, measure what you're getting, where your revenues are, where your costs are, and make those decisions going into it with your eyes open. We do this with potato chips, right? I can tell you more what's going on in a bag of damn potato chips than I can tell you what's going on in the middle of downtown. I can tell you the cholesterol, the sodium, and I'm not saying don't eat potato chips. I eat potato chips. I had potato chips today, but I also exercised. I have to weigh the costs and the benefits, right? So just in closing, my city, Asheville, 80,000 people, is worth $10 billion. We're 3 times the Donald in wealth, right? Our business, our parent company of public interest projects, is worth $12 million. I can tell you that the cups in our nightclub cost 5 cents a pop. How do I know that? Because we want our business to succeed. We want to make sure that we went from 3 cents for plastic cups to 5 cents for the cornstarch compostable cups, that we were still able to keep our business afloat. That make sense? If we're doing this for a $12 million business, we certainly, or actually that's a much smaller business within the portfolio, we certainly should be doing it for a $10 billion business. In fact, my city is worth more than all these 3 teams combined, or if you want to put it a different way, we're like 10 times the Panthers. You know, you think about football. Like Jerry Richardson knows the towel bill for Cam Newton. You know, we know these things as a business, or more importantly, this guy, Steve Smith, he was the captain of the team. Feisty little guy. He's a real hoot. And the team just offloaded him. Incredibly popular guy. He's still productive. He's at the Eagles. But they actually wanted a couple of 20-year-olds because they saw his writing on the wall. He's getting too old to perform. This is all just data. And sometimes a politically unpalatable decision is better for you economically. And no one in Charlotte complained about this. They're like, well, sorry, Steve, hate to see you go. Bye-bye. So we're essentially, with our development patterns, we're making choices that are not sustainable in the long run, both environmentally but also economically, more importantly. We're making those choices because they feel good today. We're putting off that cost into the future. So I just ask that you all do the math and take a look at the information. So every time we do these models of these different cities, we see different data and different data points. Different choices produce different levels of revenue. And we usually see all of the ingredients of the gumbo in one community. We see the shrimp, the sausage, whatever. We were doing stuff in Gwinnett County, Georgia. A lot of times people say to me, they're like, well, Joe, you know, people like the suburban environment. They like having all of that space around them. It's wonderful, really. I mean, I get all this infrastructure paid for. Who wouldn't want that choice? And so I love this quote. This is from the Christmas story. You know, what if we were to do that choice? What if our community were to be 100% suburban? What would it look like? And that example is Gwinnett County, Georgia. So we were doing the study in, anybody from Gwinnett? So we were doing the study in Gwinnett County. And here's Atlanta, here's Gwinnett County, just to the northeast of Atlanta. The whole time we're doing the study, they're telling me, they're like, honey, look, you don't understand, we're rural. We're rural people in Gwinnett County. We're not those urban people in Atlanta. We're rural out here. We're so huge, we're 460 square miles. All right. I don't know what that means. I mean, hell, I'm a planner. I don't know what 460 miles looks like, but I was like, all right, let's do some math. This is Gwinnett County, Georgia. So you divide their 800,000 people in their county by their 460 square miles, and this is what you get. You get 1,800 people. I say 1,900 people per square mile, which is a heck of a lot less dense than DeKalb, which has pieces of Atlanta. But when I was presenting this to the audience, I'm like, hey, y'all, what's in Mecklenburg County? How is this 200 people per square mile less than what you got? Do y'all know what's in Mecklenburg? Yeah. I was like, how the hell did y'all get denser than Charlotte without producing a Charlotte? Or a Nashville, or Austin, or Raleigh, or Asheville, or Chapel Hill. Chapel Hill is bigger than any town that they've got in Gwinnett County at 35,000 people. I'm like, how did you pull this off? I mean, I was stunned. You know, this is dense. And they're like, well, no, we're not. I'm like, that's your data. When we did their model and ran their analysis, this is what you get for it financially. This is the highest value per acre in Gwinnett County, $8 million an acre. My little podunk town of Asheville is pulling $46 million. The less dense Chapel Hill, Raleigh, Charlotte, Nashville, and look at this one. That's less dense than this. So how'd that choice work out for you? You know, and so we did their model, and Josh McCarty did this model, and he emails this to me, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, what the hell? And you saw on the other maps, you see like a splotch of purple. They got no purple. And we turned the model on its side, we're like, all right, something's got to pop up here somewhere. Well, maybe not. It's like a big old thick carpet of nothing. And this is what we typically see. Can y'all tell me where downtown Chapel Hill is? The little old Chapel Hill, boom. Downtown Carborough, even downtown Hillsboro's got a spike. We typically see a spike, but they didn't have that. So let's do this. This is kind of fun. This is, we call this the heart monitor. So this is looking at the sides of the models of Nashville, Austin, and the most dense, Lawrenceville. And this is the economic effect of each of them. So I was like, well, we got a pulse of about 192 million there, about 476, and the most dense one's pulling a whopping 8 million an acre. How's that working out for you? And they're essentially broke. Now they're at the decision where they're like, oh, we should have done something differently. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. I mean, heck, they didn't even do this little bump. So they've deliberately made choices to avoid an urbanism. Let's go all the way back to the first slide. How do you want to be when you grow up? What are you shooting for? When I went to Rome, Italy, this is a community that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. We, as hairless apes, make cities for environmental, economic, socioeconomic, all sorts of decisions. We've been living through an experiment. Parts of it work, parts of it doesn't. But we have to kind of realize the economic effect of these choices, and we're dealing with those in a lot of communities. So just as you continue your dialogue, I love this chart. But now they're in a hard spot. They're essentially trying to figure out how to put carpet in after they've moved all their furniture into the house. It's not an easy thing. So while you've got that opportunity, while you're starting to grow, put those bones down that can allow your community to go in a very long future of growth. So thank you.